All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Holistic Hub podcast. I'm so excited to be joined by today's guest, Connie Zack, who is a co-founder of Sunlighten Saunas. And I personally have had my solo Sunlighten sauna for the last 4 or 5 years. I was just telling Connie right before we got on the air here, and I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for joining today, and I'm excited to pick your brain about infrared saunas.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So, the first question I always love to ask people is just what got you into this? So, what got your gears working towards wanting to create this brand and be able to help other people?
Yeah, it was because my brother was really ill, and I had never heard of him for, and this is a long time ago. It's over 20 years ago, and my brother was young and, had this great, active life, and slowly but surely he started to deteriorate and started to go to doctors and try and, do a lot of research and figure out what was wrong with him. Nobody could figure it out. And it wasn't until he went to his dentist for his regular dentist appointment, and his dentist said that, Jason, I think what's happening is the mercury in your amalgam fillings are leaking into your body. I think it's causing a toxic overload, and that's why you're so sick. He had chronic fatigue, and he had vertigo, and he was nauseous and just aches and pains all over his body. And he was miserable. He literally didn't get out of bed. And so the dentist took it one step further, not only diagnosed him with heavy metal toxicity, but then also said, I've been reading and I've heard of a wavelength, a technology called infrared. And there's some data saying that you can detoxify the body, naturally in the comfort of your own home by using an infrared sauna. And so my brother immediately did that and changed his life. Completely changed his life. And I saw that. I was working at Procter and Gamble in the pharmaceutical division. I've always had this really, just sincere, passionate desire to help people be as healthy as possible and live like their best, life regarding wellness. And when I saw that my brother was able to do something naturally, because I was on the pharmaceuticals and I was dedicated to helping people with Crohn's and colitis with medications. I was helping people with hypertension with medications. I was helping people with many, different types of skin diseases, and but it was all through medication, and knowledge and everything like that. But it wasn't through any kind of natural modalities. And so I saw my brother, and he changed his life just sitting in the sauna in his home, and just daily he went from being so sick to each day, it was like one foot in front of the other, got better, and like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, this is amazing. And so eventually, I ended up leaving P&G and dedicated the rest of my life to perfecting this great, powerful wavelength called infrared, figuring out the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs, and how to make it the most effective, efficient product possible and bring it to the masses and make it accessible and all those different things. So I always say I jumped out of a plane without a parachute. There was no plan B. So that's the story. It's crazy when I think about it.
That's such an inspirational story. And I'm so glad that you did jump on this journey of creating these saunas because like I said, I've been using mine for 4 to 5 years now and I love it. It was a big part of my chronic illness journey. And I work with a lot of clients under a toxic load, and that is something that they feel so much benefit once they incorporate infrared sauna use into their everyday regimen. They feel so much better. So just wanted to say thank you.
Oh,
And
thanks for your support. And I'm so glad that you started with the solo. I always tell people, that's such a great when they ask me, what should I do to get started? And I don't know if I'm going to get a big cabin. And I'm like, the Sunlighten Solo system is the perfect way to start. Absolutely perfect. It's easy. It's portable. You can plug it into the wall. You can put it anywhere. You can easily move it. I mean, my first solo that we had when we started our business in the basement, we had it initially in the living room, and then we would take it, to different rooms, and it was just so easy to move, you know.
That's what I love about ours too. And when we first got ours, we were actually living on this land that we were living behind someone else's home that was like this little granny flat because I was like interning at this health center. And so we just got this place like quickly for a year. And it was actually, we had placed the Solo on top of the loft. So it was just like,
Oh,
it was so easy. We were like, oh, which sauna brand can we get? And we were looking into them. And we're going to dive into the different types of the reasons why obviously Sunlighten sauna is so superior to other brands just based off of the materials used, low EMF, things like that. But that's what we looked into and realized that. And we saw you had the Solo and we were like, this is perfect for our little like 300 square foot little place. So yeah, I love that it's portable. And I always tell people start with that one if you're looking into getting a sauna.
yeah, the size is great, and it's not what you would think of, so that kind of causes pause sometimes for people, because when they're thinking of a sauna, they're thinking of a cabin, they're thinking of something large. Sometimes people think about the fact that they want to share it with somebody else. All good things. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, once you use it and you have it in your home, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever. It's so wonderful. It feels so amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And you had talked about when your brother the doctor had told him, okay, so infrared wavelength is very healing and this is something that you should look into. So I think this is a great way to dive into what is exactly infrared wavelength. What are the differences between like near, mid, and far, and maybe some of the benefits of each of them?
Yeah. So I'll start on a high level of what is infrared and how is it different than the traditional heat that people are familiar with. So the traditional heat that people are familiar with, is that heat heats the air. So you get hot because the air is hot. So today, I live in Kansas City. Today is a hot day outside. And so when you walk outside, you're instantly hot because the air is hot. Uh, Infrared comes from the sun, and it really brings the healing, natural parts of the wavelengths into your body directly versus focusing on heating the air. So you get hot because the wavelength is being absorbed into your water molecules, and each one of the parts of the infrared spectrum is absorbed in a different way. The other thing that's so wonderful about the infrared spectrum is it is a combination of light and heat. And light energy is so incredibly powerful and so needed for us to thrive in this world. And in today's day and age, most people aren't getting light energy. They're inside, so they're actually getting, the negative effects because they're getting harmful light energy, blue light energy, versus this, wonderful light that comes from the sun that our water molecules need, our mitochondria needs. We need it in every system in our body to function, and we're not getting it. But so when we bring infrared inside, and into the sauna, you're getting that light energy and the heat energy that you need, to survive. The other thing about infrared that's different from traditional heat is that it's a spectrum inside a spectrum. Like what you just mentioned is there's three separate wavelengths. I say four because people don't understand the difference between red and near. So we'll just say for the sake of this discussion, four wavelengths. So there's far infrared, mid infrared, near infrared, which is invisible, and then there's red light. So there's four different ones, and I'll go into each of those in a second, but I want to take one more step back to describe to people how infrared feels specifically, because it is different than that hot air that sometimes you walk outside and you're like sometimes it's hard to breathe. So if you can picture, a day where you go outside and it's cloudy and you almost feel a little bit of that kind of gloom of, where's the sun? That just kind of feeling. And then all of a sudden, the sun peeks through and shines its smiling face, and you feel this beautiful sensation, almost like this just like sunny hug completely all around you. And you're just like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. That feeling is infrared. That's what infrared feels like. And that's what we bring to everybody, and we've been working hard on for the past 20 years is mastering that absorption and the effectiveness and the benefits, etc. But I just like to say on the simplest terms so that people understand, is it going to be hot, is it going to be cold, like a lot of times it's really hard to imagine if you have never used it before, but it just feels like a really beautiful, gentle hug that just almost at your soul level, you're just like, oh my gosh, yes, that feels so good.
I love that. And I love that you talked about bringing this healing energy into the home, because the statistic is like 90% of us are spending, or we spend like 90% of our day, like time indoors or something like that. And it's just, we're spending so much time inside and not spending enough time outdoors, getting this healing energy from the sun and just being able to get that beautiful vitamin D and fresh air and all these other things. But I love how you mentioned that piece, that this is a great way to just bring something into the home that you can access daily to be able to provide those healing benefits. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the differences between the near, mid, and far infrared, and kind of what they're doing, I guess, at the cellular level, and like what benefits we see from that.
Yeah. So we'll start with the far infrared wavelength. That's the one that we originally, when we started the company in our basement, we knew the most about at the time. And far infrared is absorbed into your water molecules, and it's really there's so many benefits, but one of the primary ones is that when it is absorbed into your water molecules, it like changes the bond, actually makes your molecules dance, and it provides this different movement inside your body. It helps your mitochondria grow. It makes helps increase the strength of your immune system. It also increases your core temperature, which is really super powerful because that activates those really important personal trainer cells called your heat shock proteins. And that makes, that there's so many exponential benefits of activating your heat shock proteins, making your body stronger, helping you develop fight disease. And let's see, one more claim to fame with far infrared would be it helps with depression. I could talk separately about the study that has been done with that. So increase your core temperature, detoxifies the body, helps with depression, helps with weight loss as well, is absorbed the deepest into the body. That's far infrared. Mid infrared doesn't go as deep, and it's also hotter, so the experience is not as gentle, let's just call it, right? And the benefit of mid infrared, it's really great. It's my like recovery wavelength. It's great for muscle recovery. There's been studies done on agility and flexibility, and it helps to decrease inflammation in the joints and tissues, helps to increase circulation. It works really well with far infrared as well on weight loss and waist circumference, and helping to reduce cortisol, and so helping with stress. So that's mid. Now near, once we leave mid, so mid and far are impacting your body through the heat aspect of infrared. Once we leave mid and we go over to near, it's so much hotter that it's impossible to deliver near via heat. You have to change it and convert the wavelength to LEDs. And so you have to receive the light energy, because the heat would be too hot, you'd burn. It would be impossible to receive the near infrared. So near infrared, there is no heat. It's all light. And what makes near infrared a little bit hard for people to understand is that it is invisible. So that's hard for people to kind of wrap their minds around. Wait a second, there's this invisible light energy that's helping, to strengthen my mitochondria and make my body stronger and decrease inflammation, all these great cellular benefits, but it's invisible. It's just hard for people to understand. So that's one of the reasons that red light, people are starting to gravitate to and understand it, because they can see it. It penetrates the skin, so it's not absorbed deeply as the other wavelengths. There's red and near are surface penetrators, right? So near goes the deepest of the two, and then red doesn't go as deep. And they help with skin repair, really great with making the skin resurface and accelerate cell turnover, helping with fine lines and wrinkles and wound healing, and any types of like bone. Really great. There's great studies of bone fractures and just healing the cells and regenerating them and putting them back to homeostasis. So that's a high level of the 4 different ones. And each one has their own personality and their own impact, on the body. And it's great. It's fantastic if you can get all 4 in one place, like Impulse, the sauna behind me. We independently have far infrared, mid, near, and red. We have them independently, as well as we combine them. So you can use them by themselves, or you can use them in a combination. We have 6 different programs. We have the cardio program, pain relief, detox, anti-aging, weight loss, and relaxation. And you just press a button depending on which program you want, and the brains inside the sauna start activating the wavelengths at different intervals and different temperatures, and just different mechanisms to give you the maximum output for cardio, for example. So, but you don't have to have all 4. You can absolutely, if you want, to have just the far infrared, which is a solo. There's, as you know, you can speak to, all the different things the benefits that you've experienced over the past 4 years. That's how we started, and it was enough for a very long time.
Yes. Oh, that's so exciting to hear about all the different benefits that you're mentioning, like through studies and clinical trials of different types of infrared wavelength. It's just really exciting to hear the different benefits that people can experience for whatever condition that they might be going through. But really also exciting to hear about the Impulse having a combination of these different ones. So that was going to be my next question. And for the listeners, I am going to be linking the different cabins and solos in the show notes. So, just so that everyone understands, do the different types of cabins that you have offered, do they prioritize like far, mix of far and mid, more mid? Is that, and then the Impulse just has a combination of all of them?
So the solo and signature are far infrared, and that is their focus. Because remember, when we started, that's where all the data was. That's what we knew the most about. That's what healed my brother. So, through detoxification. So that was how we started. And then about, 10 years, we'll call it, into our business, a lot of scientists reached out to us as experts in infrared and said, there's some data and some interesting science on the other 2 wavelengths, mid-infrared and near-infrared. We should do a deep dive into that and see how we could bring forth both of those wavelengths, either in a blend or separately. And we learned that separately is really the ideal, because it's more potent, right? Because you get all of it, versus some of it in a blend. And so that's what we worked really hard to deliver, is separating that out. And that's when we introduced Impulse. Now, we do have one other product that I should mention, because there's a really good role for this product. So the product is called Amplify, and it is a cabin that has far infrared behind you, like in the back wall. And then in the front, there's 2 full spectrum heaters that you can turn on or off. And what that means is that is a blend of the 3 different wavelengths, but it is it's called amplified because it's hotter. And some people really, really like that bam, effect, that impact of like, I just want it as hot as possible. And so we created Amplify to provide that, experience. There's some data, on some benefits to doing in, hot and then cold. And so we wanted to provide that option to people. So there's 4 different solutions. All of them have tremendous benefits, and all of them have what I call the foundational wavelength, which is far infrared, because that's the one that ultimately is going to detoxify your body and put you kind of back into this normal, state. I mean, there's lots of other benefits as well, but if you're continuing to walk around with a toxic overload and you're trying to fix things, you're never really going to get healthy until you get, rid of that burden and then reset, and then start, your nutritional aspect and your exercise and, your other modalities such as, meditation or whatever. I don't like to prescribe things to people. That's not my, expertise, but it is important that you do multiple things. And what's great is you can do multiple things inside the sauna. So, I mean, that's so nice. There's like the very few modalities where you can be inside there and do your meditation or do your visualization or journal writing or deep breathing or stretching. You can do all that while it's 2 for 1, 3 for 1, 4 for 1, depending on what you want to do.
Oh, absolutely. So when you were mentioning the different modalities, because there's, all different aspects to somebody's healing journey and like what we need to do to just kind of address different things like nutrition and meditation and just gentle exercise, sauna work, all these things. But what's beautiful about sauna work is what I personally do, and this is what I did from day one when I got my solo sauna, was I used it as my meditation time too. So it was like, because it's very relaxing and very helpful for the nervous system. And so I found it really supported my nervous system exponentially when I meditated at the same time as using the sauna. So that was something that I wanted to definitely make sure I mentioned here. And when I'm starting to suggest that someone should implement infrared sauna use into their healing regimen, a question that I often get asked is, okay, well, how much am I going to sweat in this, right? Because a lot of people, like you had mentioned, they with the Amplify product that you said, people want to like really feel like they're sweating or they're really like detoxing out. But I try to mention that you're actually getting the benefits through the infrared wavelength without breaking a sweat. And typically when I use the sauna, I'll use it around like 40-ish minutes. I really don't break a sweat till the last like maybe 10 minutes or so. So I'd actually really love for you to kind of touch on this topic. So do you get the benefits of that infrared healing wavelength even without breaking a sweat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you, with the Solo, when you use, do you have a routine that you do all the time as far as the number that you pick on the domes? Like, do you like always do the same thing, or do you vary it?
Yes, I actually do the same thing. So I worked up to 8. So I know it goes
Oh,
up to
wow.
9
Yeah.
as the highest. And so I worked up to 8. I probably started at like a 3 is what I
Yeah.
started at, and then worked my way up. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. So I'm glad you shared that, because it's important for somebody who wants a solo to know that you can start at a lower temperature. And I would recommend, if you're not used to it, to do that, because that way your body gets familiar with the energy, because this is energy medicine, right? So it's more technologically advanced than a lot of other things, and we try and make it really simple, but if you really think about it, I mean, it's four different types of energy that are working, with your body to heal you naturally, to work with your own systems, to make you as healthy as possible. So as far as sweating, take it back to that question, because there's a couple of things I want to mention. So one, absolutely, you can get the benefits without sweating. And like Dr. Hamblin, who is our medical advisor and the world leader on infrared technology, and has written so many textbooks, and is just wickedly bright. He's so bright and has taught me so much. He really talks about the ideal way to get the most amount of infrared into your body as possible. It's to get in and turn it on and receive the energy while the temperature is escalating, because it's at that point where the wavelength is the longest and the smoothest. So it's the most easily absorbed into the body. If you just think about waves in general, and how they appear, and you're a swimmer, so you can speak to, you can think about this, as the weight, like if you're, swimming, somebody in it, it's there's more friction, or the waves are more like bigger, or like more activity. It's a better way to say that. It can be harder, than if it's smoother and longer. And so when it's the same thing with the energy, is when that infrared is smooth and long, it is, your body is just like, it just like soaks it in. And the hotter it gets, the shorter the wavelength gets, the choppier, the more friction exists. And so once there's more friction, that's harder for the body to receive it easily and abundantly. And we want abundance when it comes to infrared, because we want to activate all of those important systems in our body, and we want our mitochondria to be like, yes, come on, bring it in, like, make me stronger, and we want our water molecules to dance. We just want everything. We want our blood to start flowing. We want to increase the circulation. We want, like, our endothelial lining to be smoother. We want our brain to be more activated. We want oxygen to flow. And all of that, for all those activities that I'm describing to happen, we need it to be absorbed into our body versus just having, like, air, hot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for explaining that. And I think that message will be perfect for a lot of people to hear, because I think a reason why a lot of people love the traditional sauna is because that feeling of sweating and really like working, it's almost like cardio versus weightlifting. It's like people love to feel like that sweat. And the benefits that you get from this infrared healing wavelength is really incredible. And I have to say, I really worked my way up for months, actually, just because I didn't want to overdo it. And I took me probably a few months before I really actually started to break a sweat in there, because of how much the temperature I was increasing, but also how much longer, like, my duration was in the sauna. But the benefits that I started noticing were pretty immediate. So I was personally struggling with mold toxicity, mast cell activation syndrome, and just chronic fatigue. And so I had recently been diagnosed with mononucleosis. So there was a whole host of things going on, which seems to be the case for lots of people when they're dealing with all types of chronic illness, right? There's not just one variable, there's multiple. But that was one of the big things that I noticed was, I don't need to be breaking a sweat. I don't need to be in here for 30 minutes to get benefits. I can be in here for 5-10 minutes and really feel good at a low temperature.
Yeah, and so for mold toxicity, you bring up a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I know so many doctors and other people, but I tend to have conversations with physicians or healthcare practitioners over the years who have had similar situations to you with mold toxicity, and they have all, specifically when they've gone through the healing process with their Sunlighten, they have all done it, all of them, with the solo. Isn't that interesting? And the reason why that is because they enjoy the sensation of A, lying down, and then B, your head is out, right? So there's this sense of like you're pulling out and you're just kind of purging, your body through with these toxins, and you're kind of starting over while you're breathing in, oxygen from the outside. And you can also do your meditation and lie down. You can do your visualization of removing the just kind of putting that picture in your head of removing everything. So it's a side note, not something I normally talk about, but when you said that, I had this flash of all these different people over the years who have used that, and a lot of them have both saunas over, and use the solo specifically when they are exclusively focusing on detoxing.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was my experience too, is using the solo was perfect because I could lie down, I could do my meditation. I didn't feel like claustrophobic in any way, not that I ever do when I go into a sauna, but just being under a toxic load sometimes just makes you feel really in that sympathetic dominant state. So when I could just really like lie down, relax, my head was out, get that fresh air, I just felt really good and comfortable, and it really felt like it was supporting my nervous system at the same time. So I think this is a good segue into talking about mold toxicity and just your experience with all the different clients that are purchasing from Sunlighten. As we know, different toxins preferentially excrete through different mechanisms in our bodies, sweating being one of them. I know there's different studies now that have shown mycotoxins like to get excreted through our sweat. And so what's your experience in just working with a lot of people over the years in mold toxicity with infrared sauna use?
Yeah, we've had a very positive experience over the years. I mean, extremely positive, and significant impact on people who are really, really, really sick. You know, um, it's horrible. It's horrible. I've seen my brother, so I can completely relate, and it's painful when I talk to people who are going through that, because I just want to heal them instantly. I just don't want them to go through that. But using the solo or any of the Sunlighten saunas will help to detoxify the body and be able to kind of reset your body. There is a study specifically that may be referring to, that looked at blood, urine, and sweat, and the toxin removal in those three different modalities. And sweat, was very, very powerful. And there was specifically with mercury, there was 15% of people that did not have mercury in their blood, but when they tested their sweat, 100% of that 15% had it in their sweat. So it's an important aspect. It's important to be sweating and to remove toxins. It's important to be increasing your circulation. It's important to getting that oxygen flowing, the blood flowing. So if that is something that you're going through, if somebody is listening is going through, I would definitely say give the Sunlighten solo system would be a perfect way to start. Give that a try. I think you're going to be really, really happy, and you know what? I think you're going to notice a change almost immediately, because there's so many aspects of your body that are impacted when you have toxins that are stuck and you have toxin overload, right? Like you can have brain fog, and you can't think clear. You don't have energy. You just don't feel good. You may have pains and aches, and so you notice when you start to make a change and a transformation, like, oh wow, I actually feel a little bit better today. And that sensation is going to get you to go do it again and again. And I do encourage, while I'm on that topic, I love what you said about you started slow and you worked up, and now you notice that in the last 10 minutes is when you start to sweat. And that is a pattern that we have also seen over the past 20 years, is that it's good to start slow, and exactly what you just did. And my point of bringing it up is I really want to encourage people to keep doing it and do work on extending and working up to 40 minutes. You'll notice, in my opinion, it's like a zone. It's like this like tipping point. All of a sudden, it's like your cells start to respond and they're like, oh yes, like I'm ready. It's kind of like if you're a runner or if you do some type or swim, you get to a point, you did long distance, you get to a point where you get into that zone, and you can just keep going and going. And that there is that in the sunlight. It doesn't happen right away, so your body has to get used to it. But that 30 to 40 minutes is what I would call that kind of zone healing process. And so I just encourage somebody to get there. Keep doing it. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. That doesn't matter, because you'll have benefits all along the way. You'll have benefits of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So don't stress out that, oh my gosh, I don't have 40 minutes. Like, don't let that, impact you resisting using it. But just do in your head once you start, put that goal out there. Okay, I want to get to 40, because it's a magical place.
Absolutely. And just like a muscle needs to be exercised, it's like our cells also do too, right? It's just our bodies, like at that cellular level, needs that consistency, and just to not give up, like you mentioned, and just to continue, keep going, because you'll be able to work your way up. Absolutely. Your body gets used to it. It wants it. It starts to crave it. You really feel that too. Like you'll wake up and you just want to get in your sauna because you want to start to feel those amazing healing benefits that you can get pretty quickly just at the 5 or 10 minute levels. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's my favorite time of the day is that just morning. I just feel that it gives me the ability to do so many things to prepare for my day. It's helping me, give me that passive cardiovascular benefit. It's giving me energy. It's getting my brain set to take on the day, just getting that wonderful oxygen to my brain and giving me that just feeling of confidence and perspective and intention. And, and then having, if it could be a light sweat, sometimes it's a light sweat, sometimes it's a big sweat. It just really depends on what's going on. If I do something before, how hydrated I am, it's really important. And the more experience I have with this, I really emphasize the need to not only hydrate just an amazing amount, but also to make sure that you're doing some electrolytes as well, and checking your electrolytes and replenishing your body. That will give you a better experience and better results too.
Oh, absolutely. And another thing I wanted to touch on while we're kind of still on the topic of working your way up, because another part of my client population, just based off of also, this was my personal experience with mast cell activation syndrome, is that there's all different kinds of triggers for this part of our immune system. Mast cells are a type of white blood cell that tend to become very like hyper-focused and hypersensitized to a lot of things in the environment, and heat is one of them. Heat was actually one of my biggest triggers, and that seems to be a really common one with a lot of people I work with. And so that was another big benefit for me when I knew I wanted to start getting into sauna use, was that I couldn't handle traditional sauna work because of the heat. It was just too hot for me. And so being able to start at such a low temperature, so the scale is 1 to 9 on the solo, I was able to start at 3, which felt very good to me at like a 5 or 10 minute level. And that's usually what I kind of tell a lot of my clients that are also dealing with mast cell activation syndrome or under toxic load, but specifically due to that heat intolerance, it seems to be really helpful just to even start at the 1 setting, or whichever product they get from Sunlighten, right? But starting at like the lowest setting and not worry about it having to be at such a high temperature, but also just being able to stay in it just for a couple minutes and just test how your body is doing. And you can just slowly build on that, right? Slow is the best way to go, in my opinion, when you're starting to implement anything, but especially with healing at such a cellular level, is going nice and slow and just being consistent with it. And then you'll be able to work your way up. And that was one of the biggest things that I noticed for myself, was just being able to work my way up. But also that's something I mentioned with a lot of my clients too. And but the other piece with mast cell activation syndrome is just having that nervous system dysregulation. Just our nervous systems are so heightened. And I just noticed that even to this day, even if I don't meditate in my sauna, I feel the nervous system benefits. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on why the infrared sauna might be super helpful for our nervous system, and if there are any studies on this, or what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, yeah, I will share that. 1 second. I wanted to build on while I was thinking about it, your going slow, as well as, when you were talking about how you tried other saunas, and, the Sunlighten is like the one that it didn't trigger. It wasn't a trigger because of heat. I have heard this so many times. And in fact, Beth O'Hara, I don't know if you know Beth, she shared her story. And what is interesting, and Beth's story is similar to a lot of other people who have shared their story, is they tried other infrared. So it's not just infrared versus traditional. What makes Sunlighten infrared different than just a regular infrared is that lack of fillers. When I used to where they use fillers, like the lack of hot wavelengths, hot air, so that we have a patent on our infrared delivery system and the amount of infrared, and that's what makes the experience so much more gentle, and that's what's not causing that trigger for your body. So it's a very different. So it's important for anybody who's going through what you went through, that there is a distinct difference between Sunlighten's infrared and regular infrared, and how your body is going to respond. And I know I hear it over and over and over again, because somebody will try and they're like, I can't do infrared saunas either. But then they'll try Sunlighten and they're like, holy cow, like that was a complete different experience. I felt better. I felt great. I felt more relaxed. So back to, to the benefits of your nervous system, and how the infrared is helping. I mean, it helps to balance your hormones. It helps to improve your sleep. It takes you out of this fight or flight place and puts you into this parasympathetic state really quickly. And, it's this almost kind of just like this magical minute where you go in there and you notice a difference in your breathing, you notice a difference in your perspective, in your brain, and you get to the point when you're done, you're like so much calmer, so much happier with all this extra energy. I'll always smile when I think of Leanne Rimes. She calls it her happy place, her happy box. Because she says, she publicly shares that she struggles, with anxiety and with her, nervous system. And she says, I can have a day where I feel like the world is ending. I'm having all these anxious thoughts. I'm having this horrible, horrible experience. I can go inside my Sunlighten and I come out and I'm like, the world is such a great, happy place, and it's true. And that it really, really, it really works. I mean, I used to say years and years ago, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but I remember at our old building up when we first started, if I was having, conflict, or just, it was a really tough day at the office, I would go into our showroom and I would turn on the sauna and I would have a conversation with somebody, inside the sauna. And it was always the best conversation. I would come out of that and I'm like, oh my God, I just hit the restart button on my body. I could completely feel it, right? I could completely feel my body just, my shoulders dropping, and, just that my breath, being able to flow. I wasn't having all this like anxious, anxiety, tingling feelings. Everything just felt more calm, peaceful flow. And I heard, I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago now, and it was on longevity in LA, and I was talking to somebody who owns a company who does a lot of biomarker testing, And he was saying that he has noticed that people who use infrared saunas regularly and they do their testing, he does notice a difference in their cortisol, and how it helps, um, with stress, and as well as helps reset your circadian rhythm, so it helps to improve your quality of sleep, which is, I mean, that is an invaluable, priceless benefit, right? I mean, a good night's sleep, man, there's not many things that are better than that, so that you start your day feeling rested and energized before you do anything else. And definitely the sauna can help, and it can help. So it's on that note of sleep, a lot of people think intuitively they have to do it at night in order to help with sleep. That's not true. It does, it's great in the evening if you want to do that, but I mean, I do it in the morning, and I know plenty of people who do it in the morning and they track it on their Garmin or their device, and they notice a big huge difference in their sleep score when they do it in the morning, because it gets the body started, right? And so you're doing it's like exercise without the active cardiovascular benefit. You're having a passive cardiovascular activity. You're exercising your cells, and that gets everything going. And then when it gets time, to sleep, you're going to have a more restful, relaxing sleep.
Isn't that so interesting? So I use mine. I've always used mine in the morning or very early afternoon, and I've always noticed benefits with sleep. Always. I feel so good. And I just, even if I only was able to get in for like 15 minutes, again, it's not like, a marathon. I'm not trying to, do it for an hour or something. It's just a short amount of time is perfect if that's all I have time for. And I still notice the benefits of it. And there was something that you had mentioned that I wanted to kind of go off of. It was the doctor that you had chatted with at the company at the longevity conference in LA with the biomarkers for cortisol. And that's amazing too. I could imagine that's also helping with that sleep piece, right? Because we know that cortisol, melatonin, circadian rhythm that's occurring in our systems, right? So if it's helping to really regulate that cortisol response, I'd imagine then it's helping with that melatonin production. It's helping with our bodies just feeling more rested and ready for sleep at that moment that our bodies are meant to lie down and peacefully go to bed to get that good night's sleep, which is then in turn, like you mentioned, getting that good night's sleep, nothing compares to it because our bodies just rest, rejuvenate, repair at that level too. So again, anyone suffering from what we've just been chatting about, which is different types of toxic load, chronic illness symptoms, getting that good night's sleep indirectly obviously is helping, or directly helping with repairing and helping your body to recover and heal again. So really glad that you mentioned that piece because I think that's really important.
It is. It's so important. It's something that we don't talk about enough. The value, the importance of the consistency. I know if I get off my consistent sleep pattern, that it makes an impact. So if you that's another way to kind of create the best habit when you're using your Sunlighten sauna is creating that pattern, and that routine, because then your body knows, what to expect, and it's like, oh, there she goes again. That's good. That's gonna help us. We're gonna work her hard, and then we're gonna like help her throughout the day, and then she's gonna sleep so well. So yeah.
So I've loved looking into the different studies for how infrared sauna use is so beneficial. And one study I actually came across, I think it was like in 2010 or 2013, but it was a study that showed improvement in white blood cell profiles with infrared sauna use. And we know from just chronic illness, chronic fatigue perspective, right? It's a lot of just underlying inflammation that is just running rampant in the body, but also an immune system that's dysregulated as well. And seeing that improvement in white blood cell profiles, mast cells are also a white blood cell as well. And so that's what I firmly believe too, just from all these other beautiful benefits we're talking about, but that as well seems to be a big piece in helping heal people, when they're struggling with chronic fatigue, chronic illness, chronic inflammation. Is that kind of the experience that you've also seen as well in clients that you've probably worked with?
Yes. Yeah, consistent for sure. Helping, with decreased inflammation, increased white blood cells, boosting your immune system. You know, there's a study on far infrared specifically, how that wavelength can activate a gene that's responsible for controlling inflammation. So, that's really powerful because we know that inflammation is the number one cause of aging, and people not only want to, look good and as long as they can, they want to feel great. I mean, that's what we're all about at Sunlighten, is helping people, feel better. And you feel better when your body is not inflamed, and so all the wavelengths can absolutely help, decrease inflammation at multiple levels.
I want to circle back to heat shock proteins. You brought them up earlier in the conversation. And for those of anyone in the audience that might not be familiar with heat shock proteins, what are heat shock proteins and how does infrared sauna use boost those? And what are some benefits that are typically seen once those are activated and supporting the body?
Yeah, so heat shock proteins are what they are is they help to kind of protect the cells. I call them like the personal trainers for your cells. They're also called molecular chaperones. And they are, you want them activated, and working on your behalf. And one of the ways to do that is to, have infrared heat into your body. And what's important, there's a lot of confusion on this topic. So what's important to clarify is any level of heat can activate heat shock proteins. So it's not, a lot of times people, go through these extremes and they're just like, hey, you gotta be so hot or you gotta be so cold. They just go, and there's benefit, hormesis and shock. I mean, there's benefit to shocking the body, but it doesn't have to be such an intense shock. In fact, there's more. I'm getting off on a tangent for a second, but again, at the same summit, there was several talks about how that we're finding that for longevity, it's actually better to not have things in such extremes, because it's better to do it in shorter periods of time and not as extremes. It's going to be better for your cells. It's better for aging. It's better for the experience, etc. So some of the benefits, to get back to your question, are helping with the, immune system, making your body stronger. I always just have this, visual of I'm equipping my cells, with this armor, so they are just stronger and they are protecting my body, so that if something comes along that, is a virus or something that's trying to get in and trying to attack my body, they're like, not today, get out of here, and they, repel and strengthen the body and make it stronger. So those are some of the benefits and some of the ways that it works. And what's also nice, a side benefit of using the infrared to activate heat shock proteins is it's an enjoyable experience. It's not something that you're having to endure and having to fight through and having to look at your watch and go, oh my God, one more minute, I can't stand it. I've had experiences with different types of modalities where I'm just looking at the clock. I'm setting goals, it's not like that. You can stay in there and you can really enjoy and do other things, which we already talked about, but that's really important because A, it's efficiency, B, you can help your body heal. If you're going through some of these things that you mentioned, mold toxicity, chronic fatigue, your brain is so important. That mental acuity, the mental strength, the mindset that I'm gonna get through this, the brain telling the body, the brain working with the body, and it's what a great time to do that exercise and have your brain tell your body, we've got this together, we're gonna get through this, while you're inside your sauna, because the wavelengths doing the work for you. Now you do your own work, and communicate with your body, and you've just amplified, you've just exponentially taken one session and made it a really powerful mindset session. And I mean, that's, we talked about sleep being powerful. I mean, man, taking your brain and giving a powerful mindset and controlling kind of, your emotions and, your perspective, that's equally as powerful.
Yeah, it's a powerful reset to everything you talked about, from your immune system to inflammation, to chronic inflammation, to your nervous system and your immune system and all of that. It's just amazing how it just gets in there into multiple different pathways and just helps to support your body and gently detoxification, but just like kind of almost, it's like a warm blanket, like you mentioned at the very beginning of our call. It just feels like you're getting enveloped in a nice, warm, cuddly blanket to where your body is just feeling rested, and it can just kind of give in and let the healing happen, which is the benefits that I personally notice with it as well. And I'm curious, what, besides mycotoxins and heavy metals, what are other things that we've seen through research that can get excreted through our sweat as well?
Besides, the BUS study did, let's just mention some of them, like lead, that's heavy metals, cadmium, aluminum, mercury, and then a lot of the, what do they call the drug-induced, losing my brain on the word, I'm trying to think of, I can't think of the name of the drugs, but those were all, I'll come back and think of that, but those were all removed. You also are going to remove some of your electrolytes, which is why I mentioned before, that's really important. It's so important. I mean, I really can't emphasize that enough. Plus, a lot of people, as I'm learning more about biomarkers, I'm doing my own testing. I'm just really, really immersed in that part of wellness. A lot of people are naturally dehydrated, and a lot of people don't have enough magnesium, potassium, calcium, sodium, chloride, they don't have it just naturally. And then, they start to sweat, and then they start to, deplete it even more. And if they're not getting it naturally through their diet, so that's something as well that can be removed. I'm trying to think if I missed any.
Have you seen pesticides as being something that can be sweated out?
I have not seen a study with pesticides, so I can't really comment on that. I know that what I can comment on is that a lot of those types of things, all the toxic chemicals, I mean, we're exposed to, 700,000 chemicals each day. It's just crazy. They come through on your skin, and a lot of times people comment on the difference in energy before and after using a Sunlighten sauna. And so, I don't know specifically to your question, pesticides, I don't know if that's connected to all those toxic chemicals and stuff that's, on our skin, on our food, in our products that we use, in our hair. I mean, it's all over the place, but I do know that toxic chemicals can create a healthier body, a heavier body, so where you don't have as much energy and you have brain fog and lots of different things that are relieved and do feel, in a better state after a sauna session. So I wish I had, more data specifically. That's a great question, but I don't know of any studies it would be great. This field, just the fact that there are as many studies as there are is phenomenal, because coming from like, man, it's just such a different world. There's so many studies, there's so much access, there's so much money there. It's just completely different world over there. And then you come over here and to the natural world and with healing, and you're searching for stuff. And thankfully, when I started, there was a lot of research that was done in Japan, specifically on heart disease and how infrared can help protect the heart and help decrease all cause mortality, and change. I mean, really saving lives over there. Thankfully, there was all this data, but it's not sponsored by a pharmaceutical. There's not sponsored by anybody, so that you don't. I hate to say that without the money, but I mean, it takes money, to do a lot of that, and it takes willingness, and it takes a lot. So I'm thrilled that we're able to get a lot of the data that we have. I love, love, love when people share their stories, because that's so powerful. And there's whatever story you're sharing, there's probably other people that are going through the same thing, and then you share yours and then they can relate. So.
No, I'm glad that you mentioned that. There's only so many studies out there, right? And it doesn't mean that whatever you're coming into contact with, like you mentioned, the vast amount of chemicals that unfortunately our world is polluted with now that we come into contact with, it does not mean that you're not excreting those, right? But here's the thing too, is that whether it's getting excreted through our sweat, our gut, or through like our urine, it's the infrared sauna. What I've noticed personally with that, and with a lot of the clients that I work with, is that since it's helping to boost up the immune system, it's helping to really start to open up these detoxification pathways. It's calming the nervous system to support gut motility, which is like a primary way we're excreting toxins through our stool. That is indirect. In that sense, I see it helping us to really, maybe it's not just through the sweat, but it's through other ways to help us to detoxify on a regular basis. And I'm a firm believer that so much of chronic illness now is just because of toxic load and just the way, like what we're sadly coming into contact with. So doing things on a regular basis, like sauna use, hydrating, eating enough fiber, moving, these different things are supporting our natural detox organs and eliminating these different things we come into contact with. And if lucky enough to, be able to have an infrared sauna used to be able to access that and get that at that cellular healing level, then that's just a really big added bonus to helping your body.
Yeah. What's amazing is, I mentioned, I've become so involved in biomarkers, and typically they're chunked, by the different systems in your body, like your metabolic health, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, and it's fascinating, because as I look through all that, I'm like, infrared helps every single system. I mean, there's not one that's like, oh, I'm out. I mean, in all of them, it's fascinating. You can really benefit your whole. I mean, I call it the one complete whole body longevity hack.
It's great. We've really touched on so many different systems and healing mechanisms that infrared sauna use can really be helpful for anybody that's struggling with any chronic illness, chronic symptoms, chronic inflammation, and all these different things. So thank you for sharing your information on all that. One of the final questions that I have for you is, I would actually just love for you to share with everybody what does set Sunlighten apart from other brands in terms of infrared sauna use, just based off of the materials that are used, as well as the EMF testing that you've had done, because that is also another big reason why I personally just recommend Sunlighten, because not just from that heat perspective that you had mentioned earlier, which is what I love, but also a lot of people suffering that are very sensitive to so many things in their environment end up getting so triggered by other saunas just because of whatever toxic materials that might be getting used, or their higher EMF. I work with a lot of people that are very EMF sensitive. So I would love for you to touch on that, because I think that would be something exciting for people to know, that that's another big benefit with Sunlighten.
Thank thank you. And that's a great question. Thanks for asking. I sometimes take all of that for granted because that's just who we are and what we do. So it's just kind of standard protocol, but I really appreciate you highlighting it because it's something that started at the very beginning back in the basement. And because my brother, was really, really sick and he was really, really sensitive, extremely sensitive. And so we had our own N of one, test with him, and we had to make sure we safeguarded and paid attention to all of the materials that we used from the very, very beginning. And so there isn't anything that we overlook. I mean, we pay attention. We're specific about the wood, and that's a whole conversation which we won't go into. But the wood we choose and everything and why makes a difference. The materials with the wood, the magnets, versus a lot of toxic glues, all the materials inside and outside the sauna. The really greatest thing, about the heaters is the way we've designed them, manufactured them, in the fact that, like I said, it's really important that we have the patent on the most amount of infrared into it being absorbed into your body. So you're getting the most infrared dense product on the market. You can't get more anywhere else. So that's really, really important. So that's peace of mind, for sure. And let's talk about EMF. We have tested all of our products and we have the lowest EMF. We had an outside party test impulse specifically because over the years that was the product that was the most difficult to bring to almost, like, our goal was to have it be virtually non-existent, and it's just really hard because of the tablet that's in there, the 3 different wavelengths. I mean, it was just really difficult and challenging. So, but we didn't give up. We persevered and we kept at it until we were able to get it to where it is today, which is virtually non-existent. And we have the third-party testing, to demonstrate that. So those are some of, the EMF, the materials, the infrared dense, the patent on the different wavelengths. That's something that's unique. You can't get 4 different wavelengths. You can't get 2 or more actually separately that are in high quality because we have a patent on 2 or more anywhere else. There's others, but that's probably, the highest level. I mean, we're a company who cares, I mean, we're in this for a different reason than a lot of, people. We're passionate. We really want people to feel great as a result of what we do.
That was great, Connie. Thank you so much. And I want to just leave everyone with, like, you feel a difference. You really do. I have tested out many different brands, traditional as well as infrared alike. And honestly, in my personal opinion, nothing compares to Sunlighten. And a lot of my clients feel the same as well. So I just wanted to thank you for creating such a beautiful product as well as sharing your wisdom with everyone today. I hope this reaches a lot of different people that might be suffering from chronic illness and could add this into their daily regimen to help in their healing protocol. So thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed getting to know you better. And I'm so appreciative of the work that you're doing and the impact that you're making on so many people. It just makes my heart smile when I see people like yourself that are dedicating time to helping people. Because I remember when I started and I felt like I was on an island, and when my brother felt like he was the only person in this world that had heavy metal toxicity and there was no information about it and nobody else. And once you start sharing it, somebody else will call like, I have heavy metal toxicity. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the fact that you are, spreading the word of wellness means a lot and is helping a lot of people. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.